This meeting is being live streamed. Excellent.
Hello.
All right. So it's still loading, but from what I remember last time, it is already going. So yes, we are good to go. Excellent. Elizabeth, welcome back for our already fourth episode of our Power Talks. How is Medellin, Colombia today?
Beautiful. I'm really happy to be here with you sharing. I think that these conversations are just amazing, and I love the way that they are helping people open their perspective about so many things. Medellin today, it's beautiful, it's sunny, bright outside. And how is it in your hometown?
Well, I'm just looking out my window here. It is rainy, cold, and the skies are gray. So basically, we have already started our winter season. So for the next 7 months, we're going to be having quite depressing weather, but that's okay. I'm used to it. I grew up here, so it's all good.
I think that's going to be part of an interesting topic in the future about how it affects your mood. But let's get into today's topic.
Yes, today we're going to talk about setbacks. We're going to talk about limitations. And first of all, I want to talk about the struggle. I know right now a lot of people coming out of a pandemic, especially a lot of people are struggling all the time. I also have a lot of my subscribers who talk about this a lot and they ask me for advice. So I would like to raise this topic with you about the struggle. How can we overcome the struggle? How can we leave our comfort zone and how can we allow ourselves to grow, Elizabeth?
Well, first of all, in the struggle, just like you can feel the tension in that word. When you say struggle, it's like almost like people clinch or like, oh, it's something that you really don't want to go through. But before we start talking about it or before we open the perspective about it, it's so important that we find the power on it. And I was thinking one of these days, just like imagine that there's a video game that it's about you have this character and it's just walking through a beautiful forest with flowers and rainbows for hours and hours and hours. Who's going to buy that? Who's going to buy that game? To just sit and have this character walking through La La Land? Nobody
That
is going
sounds
to
like a
buy that.
boring game, a
It
game
sounds
with no
very boring.
adversity, no challenges. I don't think anyone would want to play or buy that.
Not at all. And also, it wouldn't have any other levels, you see? Like there's no progress on that. So just like that, I would say that a struggle is what makes life exciting, what allows you to grow, what allows you to prove yourself, what you're capable of, what brings you like that emotion into the picture that at the same time it's going to help you be more grateful and appreciate more of the good moments and the good times when they are present.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think we can apply that to so many different things in life that we never seem to gravitate towards anything that comes easy. We always want the things that are more difficult, more complicated, more hard. Even if we relate this to just relationships or just people in the outside world in a romantic context, think about how we are always so attracted to the people that we deem unreachable, the ones that maybe we feel are out of our league or mysterious, or how quickly somebody that we find attractive can become unattractive when we see that they are too open, too available, too thirsty, to put it like that, to us. So I think this is like a very basic human emotion. But at the same time, we are always so quick to complain when something is hard. It's like this duality on the inside.
You're so right, and I see it as, and we have talked about this before. It's there's nothing out there. Everything out there are just tools for you to reach a place within yourself. So when you see something that seems difficult to get, you know that you have to become a better version of yourself to go get that thing. So you see them as just those tools that are going to help you go towards that. It's the same. It's like it doesn't take any effort from you to, I don't know, like go out or stay at bed the whole morning or it doesn't take any effort from you to just eat ice cream all day and donuts. It takes effort to wake up early in the morning and go work out and do everything you know you need to do to become that better version of yourself. And that also comes with like self-love. How is it that you can find the power to go through a struggle based on the self-love that you have for yourself and the place that you want to reach after overcoming that struggle? Like what is it that I can find within myself? A version that maybe now I think it's not capable to go through that, and I'm going to become that one, that it's actually growing and rising from it.
I want to ask you a question because I know a lot of people listening and watching this are going to say, well, look, I understand the concept of the benefits of struggle, of the struggle pushing me to become a better version of myself and rising above myself. But what if there is too much struggle? I think there is a difference between having certain aspects of your life be a struggle, but having your basis, in a good stable way, having a good foundation. And I think there's a difference between that and people who, for example, are just feeling surrounded by struggle everywhere they look. For example, they have to worry about paying the rent, they have to worry about providing for their children, paying off debts. I can imagine that people like that can fail to see this positive outlook on struggle, and that they just feel like, how can I start, how can I just begin to start chipping away at all these problems in my life? Like what would you tell to someone like that?
Yeah, well, there are only two perspectives that you can take in any circumstance that come into your life. You can be either a victim or a creator on it. So a victim is somebody that's like, all these things are happening to me. I don't know what to do. I'm just like, I can't keep up with everything that's coming into my life. But then the creator is like, hey, the butterfly effect, something had happened for you to be in those situations, but also you are capable of taking yourself out of those situations. There are situations that you can clearly see how they were created and they came to you. And there are some situations that seem so randomly put in your life that it's like, how in the world will I have created that? But then there's again the opportunity for you to seek and see opportunities as a problem solver instead of being a victim of everything that's going on in your life. And then the practices of self-development are like playing a big role here, because sometimes when you're doing great, you stop doing these things because you think that you don't need them anymore. So there's people that start meditating and they exercise and they eat great, and then they reach a point where they feel like they are in such a great moment in their lives that they don't need all these things anymore, and they stop doing it, and then the struggle comes again. And it's seen that the actually struggle is never the situation, it's the perspective that you see it through. And I would love for you to share with us a little bit of the experience that we were talking just some minutes before we jumped into this live. That was like, for you shared this brief conversation with me about the moment when you got the news that you had cancer, and you said like, oh, for me it was great news when I got that from the doctor. For most of people it's going to be horrible news. So you see that it's not the situation that somebody's going through, but the perspective that they see it with, and that perspective, the better it will become. It's when you go through your self-development practice. Share with us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So basically, for me, from the minute I started getting symptoms, I always kept a trouble solving attitude. So my mindset was always, okay, how can we fix this? What is the next step that we can take so I can get better? And the issue in my case was that when I first started getting my symptoms, we had no idea what it was. So it took about 2 years for us to figure out, for my surgeons and my doctors to figure out what was going on. Now, obviously, it's very hard to come up with a plan and to come up with a remedy for an invisible enemy when you don't know who or what you're fighting. It's kind of hard to have a good strategy. So we were just trying a bunch of different things, but really we were shooting in the dark. And this was very hard for me because for 2 years, it was just like, what's going on? What's going on? Why can't we identify what the issue is? So when I did finally have that conversation, when the doctor called me and my family in to tell me like, we finally know what it is and we're dealing with cancer. And this is something that I spoke about in the past. It may sound crazy to many, but for me, that was a very liberating moment. I was so happy to finally have a clear grasp, a clear concept of what I was dealing with. Now I could start planning. We could start putting together a game plan to overcome this because now we know it's cancer. We can figure out what surgery is required, if chemo is required, if radiotherapy is required. And like you said, you can either be the victim or the creator. And I always remained the creator of a plan, to overcome, because it didn't take me long to figure out that the alternative was not really that good. There's always two choices. And even if we are even when we don't make a choice, we're making a choice not to make a choice. So you're still making a choice. A lot of people, they try to go through life and they try to kind of like float and they never want to take responsibility. They don't want to go left or right. But then again, you are kind of making the decision to go a certain way because you know where you're heading. If you're not going to push against the stream, that, if the stream is pushing you towards left, you're saying, I'm not going to fight to go right, but I'm not going to do anything to go quicker to left either. You still know that in the end, you're going to go left. So it's like, it's still a thing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so in my case, it was just like, now I know what I got to do. The alternative is dying. And I don't want to do that. I don't see how people can take that option. And also something that you just said about, victims and creators is, I feel like we all have these people in our social circles that are just constantly victims of something. And when I was younger, I always had a very strong need to fix people's problems and always help, until I found out that usually it would always be the same people who had trouble, who had drama, who had things going on. And then you start realizing like it's a mindset, like they are kind of addicted to this. They are addicted to the feeling of, feeling unhappy, and also the attention that comes with the ability to complain to others. And sooner than later, people are going to check out and no longer listen to you. So if you pick the route of being a victim, you will always end up lonely in the end.
Totally. And bringing it to the practical side of like, based on your circumstances, it's like I can feel how that certainty allowed you to know what was the game. Like, as you were saying, what are the parts of this situation that I can control, and what are the parts of the situations that I can't control? And this is something that my dad used to tell me since I was a kid, that he was like, okay, if you've got a problem and it has no solution, why would you stress about it if it has no solution? So you're not going to gain anything from that stress. And if it has a solution, why do you stress about it if you can be doing the things that are going to bring that solution? So it is like a practical side of like, okay, what is the situation? What are the things that I can actually work on? What are the actions I can take right now to make this situation better? And these other things are the unknown things, the things that I can do anything about it. And once you start doing the things that are like actually under your hands, that can actually work with, you're going to see the other side of it taking more shape, because you're going to start walking a path that's going to bring certainty, that's only going to come once you start walking. It's like in Spanish is this saying that it's like caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. It's like there's no path. You make your path in the way once you're walking towards whatever you want. So that's a first thing. Just like if there's a lot of struggle, the mindset of being a creator is, what can I do right now? Not to solve it, but at least to walk towards that solution.
Absolutely. And I did just that with my cancer. Like I always told myself from the beginning, when I first had my amputation and my new face and all these deformed this deformed image of my new appearance, it was very hard for me to accept that. And I struggled with that for a long time because I was looking for a way to make it make sense until I realized I have to make it make sense myself. I literally have to make cancer the best thing that has ever happened to me. I have to be able to say when I'm 99 years old, I have to be able to say, I'm so happy, I'm so glad, and so grateful for the fact that I got cancer because that was the only way that I could make it make sense for me. I put together this idea in my mind that I'm in a movie. This is a movie. My life is a movie, and I'm the main movie star. And these are my dark days. This is like Batman when he loses his parents and he goes and becomes a monk. Like I have to suffer because this has to have a greater meaning. And you can listen to that and say, well, you're delusional or you got a big ego, you're crazy, but I don't care. Like I utilize my fantasy, I utilize my mental projection of me being like some type of superhero to get through it, whatever I needed to get through it. And I did that all throughout my cancer. Like the power of the mind and the power of being able to use fantasy to overcome daily hardships is real. For example, I remember being in the hospital in quarantine for weeks. I wouldn't be allowed to leave the room, and it was boring. Obviously, like you're just there the whole day, and it's very easy to become depressed. So what I did was I started implementing this mental technique where I started turning little small things into big things. For example, my meals, right? Anytime I would get a meal, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that would be a huge event for me. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this movie. I know you're like 7 or 8 years younger than me. It's a movie called Castaway with Tom Hanks. You ever
Maybe,
heard of that?
maybe the name is different in Spanish,
Yeah,
but I'll
yeah.
check into
In
that.
Spanish, it's like in Spanish that will be El Castawayo or something like that.
No
Anyway,
sé.
no, that was a bad joke. Anyway, um, so it's about a guy. Tom Hanks is the actor, and he basically has a shipwreck, and he ends up on a deserted island, and he has to survive all by himself in a tropical island without anyone else, and he has to look for food and things like that. So I used that movie as inspiration. I would tell myself, I would literally convince myself in that hospital room, like, I'm a castaway. I haven't had food for 2 weeks. And then anytime I would get a meal, I would tell myself, oh, I just found this washed up food package.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, this dry, untasty hospital food would be transformed into like a buffet. It would be something
Mm,
that I could really enjoy because I really convinced myself like, oh, this will, make me live for 2 more days. And I did that. And because of that, I was able to just always look forward to at least the meals. And then I would ask the nurses, like, can I get an extra yogurt? And then I would be
yes.
happy as hell. And that's something that I try to tell people all the time. Like, you don't have to be too realistic. You don't have to be too objective. Like, don't be scared to open your mind and let go of these limitations of being an adult or being serious or being considered like a grown-up person, because many
Mhm.
times, especially in my culture in Belgium, like we are such a victim to this idea that you have to be serious and fantasies for children, and like once you're an adult, it's only about money and energy
Yes.
prices and buying land, and I see it all around me, and it's such a sad thing because when you forget how to have fantasy like a child, I think a big part of you dies and you just turn into this, cold, boring, stale human being that is
Just
stuck
as you
stuck in
said
his
it,
ways.
it's like being realistic. And what is, I don't even know if that exists, like being realistic, because if you see it, reality is such a subjective thing.
Mm,
Oh, you don't know how many people got the same meal that you got when you were in the hospital, but I tell you that your reality was that you had this delicious meal that was going to go into your body, that was like this big prize, this big party. You would be happy to see the person walking towards you. And then for somebody else, the same meal would look like, oh my God, I'm still in this hospital. I'm eating this shitty food. I don't want it anymore. It doesn't taste as good as I want. Same thing, same situation. And then their perspective through your eyes, your own body, your own emotion, the self you are, to get that same experience, it's totally different. So I don't know why people like define being realistic as something almost always being the like pessimistic side of it, like, oh, you have to be
absolutely.
realistic. Even in
Yeah.
vacations, people go out in vacations and then they come back and they're like, oh, back to reality. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Vacations are reality too. Was that just like a dream? That was a reality, but people is so focused in that reality has to be so pessimistic and so full of struggle that they can't see the gift of it.
Because that's what we pass on through our cultures. Like we are constantly told, at least in my culture, like, hey, be careful, don't get too ambitious, the same way that you said it so well.
Yeah.
When people say realistic, really what they're trying to say is more pessimistic. Like it has a
Mhm.
very negative connotation. The same with ambition. Like don't be too, don't be too full of yourself. Don't be too ambitious because it's kind of intertwined with the perception of being arrogant or feeling better. It's almost looked down upon when really, like, at the end of the day, it's like this whole system where we are always constantly controlling and checking each other. Because if I'm staying down here, I also want you to stay down there. Because if you go here and I'm still there, then there must be something wrong with me. It's like you are showing me the mirror of my own deficiencies, really. So I'm also going to tell you, like, hey, don't do that. Don't take those chances. Like I've heard it a million times in my life. Don't travel to South America. You're going to get killed. You're going to get kidnapped. It's like that is your fear talking. That is
Yes.
your limitations. You're trying to bestow them upon me because you don't want me to do it, because then you have to admit to yourself that you could also do it.
That comes back to the topic of being in the comfort zone. Once you're in the comfort zone, is the known, is this place where I know that I'm not going through any risk and I'm feeling just good here because these are the things that are familiar to me. But once the struggle comes, it's like I have to step out of the comfort zone because I have to figure out something that it's not part of my nature. But also that's the only way that you're going to grow, because you can stay here and you can be very comfortable. That even like it's linked to the way the mind works. If you're staying in home every single day doing the same things, the neuropaths in your brain are just going to stay as they are because there's no new information for you to integrate. The moment where you even go outside for a walk and then you have new colors, new places, new things that you have never seen before, new neuropaths are going to be forming in your brain, allowing you to expand those points, and then you can make connections, very unique connections based on your own experiences. If you keep having the same experiences, there's no place for growth right there. So it's like you're in your comfort zone, and then all this struggle, all these different experiences, the unknown, it's exactly what's allowing you to explore these doors within yourself that are going to bring you to the next level. And in that next level, you're going to find that those things that you went through are already part of your comfort zone. It's almost like the struggle at some point is going to become comfortable, because once you go past it, you're going to prove yourself that you were able to do it. There's this I think it was a runner, that there was something said that there was no possibility for a human being to run certain amount of miles in certain time, and nobody ever did it because it was impossible and it was written. And then just this one person did it once, and since then hundreds of people have done it, just because it becomes part of the known. And that's exactly that opportunity that the struggle brings into our lives. There's something that I think now I'm not capable of doing it. But once I go through it, I'm going to find myself and hold myself up to a greater version of who I can be.
Yes, absolutely. And wow, there's two things I want to say to that. First of all, to what you were saying earlier on, you were saying that when you make yourself uncomfortable, that's when growth takes place. That's when progression happens. And it just reminds me why I love fitness and bodybuilding so much, because it's such an accurate representation of what life is. Like, our body teaches us so many things. I see so many people going to the gym for years and they never change because they're constantly doing the same exercises with the same weight. They're never pushing themselves towards failure. They never want to be uncomfortable. So their body doesn't adapt. The body's not going to change because it doesn't have to. It's used to that type of weight. Unless you are willing to get down and dirty and push weight that maybe is a little bit too heavy for you to push, your body's never going to change. And it's the same with our mind, with our energy, with our hearts, with everything. If you don't get uncomfortable, you're never going to grow. And secondly, to what you said, is in a very concrete manner, I want to say to all the people listening and watching right now, is please, please, please stop being a prisoner to the mindset and the advice of your parents. Like, don't listen too much to them, really. Like, don't be scared to go against everything that they say or believe in, and understand that they are coming from an entirely different era. Like, I can't stress this enough. People are going to look back at this particular era in the history books and say that was the craziest time ever. We are right now sharing a planet with where the majority of people still grew up without ever having internet. Like, just let that sink in. We are at such a crazy divide in the human race. So we are still taking advice. We are listening to people, with all due respect, who are 50, 60, 70 years old. And they were like 30 something years old when, the first smartphone came out. And there's just so many things that they are unable to fully grasp if you didn't grow up with it. Things that even I am, like, if I talk to a current 14-year-old, I'm sure that there's things, that I'm already having a hard time grasping. And that's why, like, I always tell people, like, please, 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 like, you have two options. Either you're gonna take the advice of your parents, go against your own intuition, go against your own will, and you're gonna make them happy in the short term because you're doing what they want you to do, but you will end up resenting them when you grow older. And you will have this typical notion in the back of your head that will tell you, man, I shouldn't have listened. I should have followed my intuition, but now it's too late. Now I'm too old. I messed up. Or you can make them upset and disappointed in the short term, do what you want. And whether you succeed or fail, in the end, they're still going to love you. Like, time heals all wounds. And at least then, if you go for your own vision, you will have the ability to still have a good relationship with your parents as you grow older. But if you don't do certain things that you want to do because they have advised against it, you will spend the rest of your later life resenting them for that. So I please urge everyone to don't be afraid to follow your own vision and don't listen too much to other people's advice, especially people that are much older than you. They simply can't fully grasp the time that we're living in. Like, it's just a whole new world. And I'm constantly confronted by this when I'm talking to older people. Like, and it's not there again, like, they can't help it. Like, just imagine, just look at the technological evolution that we've gone through in the past 40 years. Like, this has literally never happened in the history of mankind.
Such a great opportunity to find all these perspectives and advice from so many people that question about who do you listen to, it's key for you to understand that the people that you're getting advice from should be the people that have exactly the results that you want to have. It's like
Mm,
sometimes for me, many people like in my family would come and tell me advice about my health. And it is really funny because many of them are very sick and they are telling me how like my vegetarian diet shouldn't be that way, how I should take care about certain things that are spread all over the world. And they have all gone through a ton of issues that I don't have. So it's like, again, I'm going to listen the advice from the people that have the results that I want. And sometimes it's going to be like a relationship advice. I'm going to get it from a person that has a relationship type that I am looking forward to have one day. I'm going to hear financial advice from someone that's totally free and that have the type of financial freedom that I want. It's so important to see that you have all of this, but also in this industry, there's a little like shift that we need to do. And it's that so many times we get caught up in information and it's like we're almost always getting ready and listening to podcasts, listening to these type of videos, reading books on how to get ready to go and have a life. But once it is happening, you get so afraid and it's like, oh, the struggle is coming. It is like when you go to school. You're practicing and practicing and practicing, and then graduation comes after the exam. You are going to have an exam so that the teacher can see that you can practically apply everything that you have learned. So if you're here, you're listening to these videos, I am sure that you are into self-development, into personal growth. Then when the struggle comes, it's really the opportunity for you to take a different action in that same thing that has happened. And evaluating yourself in this version who you have become, how am I acting or responding to the things that are happening in my life versus some years ago, that other person that wasn't that aware about all these things. It's just the great opportunity. And sometimes life is going to make fun of you. It's like, oh, so you're learning all these things. So let me throw you this little issue or this little thing that is going to make you crazy to see if you're actually able to apply all these things that you're listening to every single day on Spotify, YouTube, or in your books.
so it really hit home with me what you just said about people giving you advice and you're looking at them like you shouldn't be giving advice. For me, something that I've been going through a lot, and ever since I moved back to Belgium 2 years ago, the same. I get so much advice from people in my family older than me on what to do, which direction to take. Mainly, they're encouraging me to take a more safe approach as it comes to the profession and the things that I'm doing. Get a normal job, things like this. And just in general, like they feel like I'm taking too many risks. I'm not saving enough money. I'm spending too much time and energy and resources on traveling, things like that. And I always look at them and I see, they have so many problems. They complain so much. And it's so crazy because I will tell them this sometimes. I will say, like, why do you think that you are the authority on how to obtain happiness and a good life? I feel like if I'm going to follow your advice and your guidelines, I will end up in 30 years where you are today. And quite frankly, that would be a nightmare. I would not want to be in your position because, you many times these people are complaining. It's so crazy how many old people I hear complain about their wives or their husbands, saying that they picked the wrong one. But again, they stay with them because old school conservative thinking, especially in Belgium, don't forget, like the people generations before me, they were still going to church, and they were really still influenced by that, meaning that there was no such thing as divorce. Decent, good people didn't get divorced. If you had a shitty marriage, if you were being beaten, or you had an alcoholic husband, or you had a wife that was psychologically abusing you, you just stuck it out. But you didn't get divorced because that was like the ultimate disgrace. They're still coming from that era. And it's like, this is, this antique mindset, this way of just like telling you how to live your life. And why is it, do you think, Elizabeth, that people have such a hard time understanding that they they should not be giving out advice? Why do we always think that we know better? Is it because they look at us still as babies? Is it because we're younger? Is it because they just want us to go in a weird subconscious way? They don't want us to do better because they kind of regret the choices they made in life. Because I feel like if I'm older and I'm unhappy with my life, I would tell all the young people like, "Hey, don't do what I did. Do the opposite." But why don't they do that? Like, what is your perspective on that?
Especially with family, I would say that, and you can see it in nature, the role that the parents have in our life is to keep us safe, to keep us alive, right? It's not when there's this process in nature, you're not wanting your kid to have the best life they can have, but the main goal is to protect them so that they can stay alive, right? Because that's going to show you that you did a great job as a protector. And there's also a line in which many times the further people or parents will come from wanting to protect you is for you to reach and do the things that they couldn't do in their lives, but that you can fulfill that. And that's something that's a pattern that has been through generations of you fulfilling your dad's dream. And then you, as you didn't fulfill your own dreams, you're going to expect your kids to fulfill your dreams and actually do with their lives what you wanted to do with yours, because you spent yours doing what your father wanted from you, which was the thing that he didn't do with his life. And it's a whole pattern that it is time for us to break right here. So once again, what they want you is to make sure that you're going to have everything so that you don't go through suffering, that you don't go through painful moments, but at the same time, you see that it is just as the game we were talking about. If it's just a game that you are going through a forest full of rainbows, but nothing happens for years, that's a very boring game. And what they want is that you don't have the big dragon coming to eat you. But just as you're having such a plain life, just like this, they can see that you need those valleys to go real low to have the peaks as well. And that's what creates an exciting life. It is so important that we get together and start connecting with people that it's above us, let's say in certain areas of their lives. People that actually find it natural for you to have the best life you can have, for you to be the best version you can be. You're never going to be criticized by someone that's doing greater than you. And for someone who has like a smaller goals or like a smaller version of what they think they're capable of doing as an impact in the world, they're going to think that everything you're dreaming of is too big. And they're going to try to keep you just in their comfort zone, in the known for them. Because actually there's love behind that. They love you and they want to protect you. But then for other people in the right environment, it's going to be like, oh, why aren't you doing this? It's like they believe in you. They believe you can be a greater version of yourself. And many times the first person that we have to start with is ourselves. The person that you have talking to yourself every single day in your mind is yourself. Ask yourself, if this wasn't in my mind, but this was a person talking to me, would it be my friend? Would you have a friend that's always telling you, you're not capable of doing that? Don't go there, it's too risky. Oh, I don't believe you can do that. No, we will never have a friend that is always telling us how horrible we are at everything and that we're going to fail at everything and that our life is miserable. So why, if your mind can be your friend, you're having it as the enemy, just keeping you in that comfort zone? It's also, you can tell us a little bit of how your life would look like if you would have never had cancer, for example, and then finding the opportunity on that you went through.
Huh. Well, I at the time when I got my diagnosis, I was very much focused on making money. I was doing sales, very hardcore sales, and which I didn't like the job in hindsight because it required a lot of deception and lying, basically, in order for me to get the sale done. And I didn't care about that. I didn't mind. For me, it was only about reaching my quota and making my money. And I was also in the worst shape of my life before I got sick. I was weighing about 12 kilograms more than I do now. And that was all fat. Like I had less muscle back then, and I had like a big head. I would eat Twix. I don't know if you have Twix in Colombia, like those candy bars. I would eat Twix and drink coffee all day. I would love those. And yeah, that was just who I was. I was like, I was overweight, drinking a lot on the weekends, getting super drunk on the weekends, and the weeks were about making money. So I don't know. It's oh, I always joke that I say if I never got cancer, I would have 2 kids. I would be stuck in an unhappy marriage, and I would probably be doing cocaine on the weekends. I always say that, which is obviously a little bit of a joke, but still, like a part of me feels like maybe that's the direction that I was heading. But then again, maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit in terms of my ability to catch myself in this negative behavior. Like, was it, it's kind of like, the chicken or the egg, which came first? Like, was it the cancer that made me quote unquote enlightened? Was it the cancer that made me stop and think and become more introspective? Or was that kind of just like a natural process that was always going to take place as I matured, as I got older, and as I got wiser? So I don't want to say it's one or the other. Obviously, like
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll never know. But definitely the cancer has humbled me in many ways, and has forced me to become huh, at least less superficial, because that's something like I used to attach so much value to that, to superficial things, to looks and things like that. And I remember in the beginning, I even thought like maybe this is karma. Maybe this is just like karma for me being too focused on the way people look and attaching too much value to that. Maybe this is the universe's way of showing you like, oh, we're gonna mess with your face. So how do you like it now? How do you like being treated poorly because of the way you look? So, all these thoughts have gone back and forth in my mind. And then still, I can't really come to a conclusion because sometimes I still feel like I have many of the old behaviors that I used to have when I was younger. It's just that they are a little bit more in the background. For example, a very, very, very difficult question to answer myself is something, this is something that I realized when I was meditating one day by myself. And because I like to go on long hikes in nature, that's my way of meditating. I know a lot of people think you can only meditate when you're doing this or sitting still. Like, no, you can meditate in many different shapes and forms. I'm sure you're aware of that. And my way is either long drives in the car or walking by myself. And the question came to my mind being, would I date myself if I was a normal man, if cancer never took place? And then I run into a woman that checks all the boxes in terms of personality. We can talk for hours. We can have the most intimate conversation. It's like our souls are intertwined. But she had a reconstructed jaw like me. She had an amputation, and basically she would be the female version of me. Would I be able to get over that? And of course, it's so easy for me to say now, to be the nice guy and be like, and I looked deep on the inside and I realized that I could. But the truth is, I looked deep on the inside and I realized that I probably could not. Like that's just the way it is. Like, and I had to, even me saying that out loud and sharing that is confronting, because it's like, where do I go from here? It's like I'm expecting someone from something else that I'm not willing to do myself, which is actually the absolute exact definition of selfish, childish behavior and being a hypocrite, really. that's what it is. But then again, I realized that I can only live my truth. And I don't have to be this spiritual ideal that exists in my mind. Like too often, I think we get lost in this competitive mindset of being the best version we can be. And I think we confuse that with being like some type of holy person that doesn't exist. Like so many people that talk about spirituality, I look at them, I listen to them, and I just think, wow, there's so much ego there. There is so much ego. Like you're just using you're using spirituality and enlightenment as fashion, as a way to market yourself and to make yourself more attractive and things like that. But really, when people who see past those things, and I always say I really don't think I'm a particularly intelligent guy at all. But I do have one thing. I can feel people. I can feel people,
Yes.
and that's something that I can clearly spot. So that helped me. That was my way of living with the fact that
And
I'm probably a huge hypocrite.
we're here to be that. We're here to be humans. Let's think of terms of the soul. Like the soul, it's something that it's infinite. It's this beautiful, magical energy that is just love. It's an energy that doesn't judge. It's an energy that just floats gracefully, peacefully, in harmony with everything. It just is, right? There's no separation, just being. And we decided to come and incarnate just for the fact that we want to experience ourselves. We were, I think, so enlightened in the soul state that we needed to see what is it to be dark so that we can recognize our light. And it is the approach. It is right now to experience ourselves in terms of everything that surrounds us. We are connected with everything. Like you know that in the air there are the same cells that are like in my body, and then we are connected even if you're miles and kilometers away. And that's a lot of like quantum physics. But in terms of the experience, it is more how can I relate to other things and learn from them, so that the experience that my soul decided to have, and you can be in connection with your body and learn from the relationship with your body through a concert, or you could be in connection with your body and have that experience of having a body through being an Olympic athlete or something like that. You could be in connection with money, seeing one facet of money, being the most millionaire person on earth, or you can be in connection with money, seeing another side of money while being a homeless and really struggling to it. So the main thing is that from the spiritual perspective, we come here to have these experiences to really know what we are, what are all the things we can become based on this identity that we decided to incarnate on. And the struggle are just like these tunnels that you have to go through so that you can reach that destination, which is actually also within yourself, but you have to discover it. And there's people that want to go around the tunnel, want to go around the mountain, want to, I don't know, like, let's explore this hike, let's go up or let's go down. But the crazy thing is that the most direct way is go through the tunnel. It's going to be the darkest. It's going to be probably the most scary one, but it's also going to be the fastest one. You can see that like that's the way that you're going to go through and find the light at the end. And same with a struggle. You can like just not care about it, or you can just leave it aside and live with it and like get used to have that type of life, or you can really sit down with it and understand what is it that this is teaching me, what is it that this is asking me to become in order to go beyond that. Because if it is the teaching and the lesson that your soul wants to learn in this lifetime, maybe you don't take care of it now, but it's going to keep showing up in your life again and again and again until you learn the lesson. The struggle can be a different person, can be a different situation, can be a different job, but until you learn the lesson, you're going to keep facing it. And then there comes the exam. Probably you do go through it and you're like, you know that you can do it. So now you trust a little bit more on yourself. But then what does the teacher? brings you a different exam. Show me that you actually learned that. And then you can see like, once you write down the patterns of those struggles, you're going to see that it's the same things. The emotions behind are the same, but they keep coming in different opportunities and settings. So once a struggle comes, you can sit down and you can find out like, what is the emotion that is rising from this struggle? And then you attach it to the rest of the stories you have told yourself. You can see the pattern and you can decide now, I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to act differently. I'm going to apply everything I have learned and I'm going to go and overcome this, becoming a better version of myself through it. Seeing it as a
let me break this down so that the viewers can really understand this concept, because it's quite complicated, but very, very interesting. So the way you're putting is that life throws us struggles, and these are like the lessons that we have to learn. Like we have to study, we have to think about what is this struggle teaching us? And then there's two ways we can do it. We can just fixate on the one solution and learn it just by heart. It's kind of like when you are studying for something, but you don't really understand what you're studying, but you're just learning the answers like by heart. Or we can try to see beyond that, and instead of just looking for the quick solution, we can try to fix the root cause and really understand the technique, the mathematics behind it, so that we can answer any exam question that might follow in the future.
Totally. Yes. Yes. It's like, and that's the difference between a person that, because you could say like, there's people that have no struggle or that go with everything, and they are not. There's people that's not happy either, because it could be a very plain, boring life. Same, there's people that was studying at school and they were doing everything appropriately, but they never learned or were like outstanding in any specific area. They didn't even, like, they were just studying for because they had to. But then it's about who I can become after this. Just as people that come into our life, there's love behind the struggle, because it's what's going to teach you the most. You're going to have beautiful situations in your life that are going to help you find emotions and happiness within yourself that are going to be great. But the greatest that you're going to feel, the best versions of yourself are going to come when you overcome those difficult moments. Same with people. Once the people that challenge you the most, the relationships that challenge you the most, are the ones that also help you grow the most. And if you see it, you could think like, oh, this person hurt me so much. But they are helping you become a greater version of yourself that you can ever be. And you can only find love through that. They love me so much that they allow my soul to experience this so that I can grow.
How can we see the difference between the people that are hurting us from a perspective of love, or from a toxic perspective? Because I think sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, whether someone is trying to actually help us and make us better, or someone is just trying to keep us down and trying to make us feel bad intentionally.
Just taking it, just changing the perspective, because there's this saying that hating someone is like this venom that you drink yourself expecting the other one to die. You don't need the other one, you don't need to classify the other one, because that's just something outside of you. It is, then we come back to this term of reality. It is not what it is, what's happening outside. It is how I'm taking it through the perspective that can help me the best. You can see it again as the victim, like, oh, they hurt me so much, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to cry, I'm going to hate them. And that's only going to be hurting you so much. So how does it make you better for yourself? how are you a better company for yourself than that person if you're keeping yourself trapped in all these toxic beliefs, right? So if you really want to be different for yourself, like, that person was not the greatest company I could have. I am going to be my greatest company, and I'm going to see how I can overcome whatever happened, accompanying myself. I'm going to be my best friend so I can create the best version of me out of the lessons I learned through this.
Right. I understand. I understand. I also think that is something that, because we talk a lot right now about how we are in relation to others. And this reminds me, I was listening to a podcast about existentialism, and they were talking about this French philosopher from, I think, the 18th century called Sartre. And he made this famous quote where he said, other people are hell. And what he meant by that is that we are consistently and constantly trapped anytime that we are with other people, like in an everyday situation, because we always have to act and comply with a certain idea that they have of us. We can never be truly free. We are always doing something. We are always fulfilling an expectation from their end, even if it's a stranger, even if it's a person you never met. Like, you're supposed to be, decent and polite and walk and talk a certain way. Otherwise, you might be deemed as weird or uneducated, things like that. So he felt it was his belief, quite extreme, obviously, that people in essence are at their best when they are by themselves, when they're alone and free of even the gaze of others. So how would you feel about that? Like, do you feel like that's too radical in one side? Or do you feel like that should be the foundation to learn to love, to be by yourself, learn to love, to be alone, and then pick and choose the moments when you want to put yourself in social situations?
I think that we try to externalize and put the weight on others on how hard they are with us so that we can justify all the expectations that we have for ourselves. It's never about the other people. Like, honestly, if you are stopping yourself from doing things you want to do because you're afraid of what others will think, let me tell you that nobody cares. Like, there's no one that is going to care about, like, more than an hour. Let's say, like, maximum, if it's someone that's really close to you, they're going to care for what, a couple of days. But you are the one who's stopping you because you have created yourself this identity. You have shown everyone an image of who you are that you are now so afraid to break because you think you're going to disappoint people. This is all a game that is going on in your own mind. For instance, once we think like, oh, this is what I want to do, I really want to take this risk, there's going to come names of people that you're afraid of what they're going to think.
Oh, that's so good.
You
That's so
have a
good.
list
Yeah.
of people that you are afraid of what it is that they are going to perceive of you. So take that list, because it's not everyone. And we say like, oh, the world is going to think people. No, you have a specific people, and write it down and think, what are these people bringing into my life of value so that I can give them weight enough, or like I can make them important enough for me to stop myself from following my own dreams. Most of the time, these people that you are afraid of what they're going to think, you don't even talk to them. It's probably your high school partner, your ex-boss, person, people that you don't even talk with, people that is not bringing any value into your life, and you're so afraid that they're going to think something about you. You're going, once you get this deep down, you're going to understand that it's all a game in your own mind of you fighting the version of you created in the past.
When you're posting, or when you're about to post something a little bit more extravagant or out of the box on social media, on Instagram, there's always that list of names in your head.
Yeah.
There's always like, what is he or she gonna think? Like, and usually it's people from our past, or the ones that we're not even that close with anymore. But we care so much. And I very often say that uh, the things that we post on Instagram, on our stories, and just post in general, like very often, especially in the stories, I feel when we're trying to convey a certain message or display certain emotions that we're doing it in code, I feel like very often those Instagram stories are for a very select few individuals, and sometimes even one individual, but we don't want to tell them directly because we're ashamed or embarrassed or we don't have the contents to do so. So we kind of tell them under the guise of like, we're doing it, I'm just posting something on my story for everyone to see so that 300 people can watch it, but really it's only about you. So unless you haven't watched it, like, it was pointless. It's a very relatable thing what you're saying right now, and it
And
definitely
so
makes.
funny how we think we can actually control their response to that, because it's you. There's no way, even if your mind says like, oh, this person saw my story and he or she is going to think this about me.
Mm,
How can you know that? You can't be in the mind of that person. So it's, again, you can see that when you post something you feel good about, it's you reinforcing that part of yourself that you want to communicate. When you post something you don't feel that good about, it's you literally, it's almost like if your ego was trying to hold you back to that old version of yourself, that safe one, and then the one, your higher self, that wants to come out and own your truth, is like, oh, I want to come out, but then the ego is still like, if the ego has been riding your car, driving your car all your life, and it's just like there, and you're like, oh, you know what? I think I can actually be a greater version of myself. I have all these gifts. I want to share a message with the world. Dear ego, let me put you here, or like, please go to the back of the car because I'm going to drive from my higher self. The ego is going to hold in the wheel and it's like, I'm not going anywhere. And in the
mm,
moment where you allow it to come back, and like that self doubt, always the inner talk between your higher self and your ego. Again, it's nothing outside. It's so funny because of these situations and all these perspectives are just created in our mind. You never read someone else's mind. You never know what they truly think about you.
no,
It's
and
all you with yourself.
exactly, and also to what you were saying earlier, like you said, most people don't care when we are not doing something because of somebody else. It's really our own, like, our own minds holding us back. Like, people don't really care that much. And I think a great example of that is when we go out, when we have a crazy night where we maybe drink a little bit too much and we act a certain way, or we say certain things. I think this is very relatable to many people. We will spend the next 3 or 4 days at home feeling bad, feeling nervous, and trying to reconstruct the night in our heads and regretting the things that we said, not really remembering what we said. And when we play back that night in our minds, it's as if the whole room was sitting there drinking tea, being sober, and we were just like these complete drunk animals out of
Yeah.
control. And we always somehow forget that the whole room was drunk, everyone was talking nonsense, and we always highlight, our own maybe negative behavior, and we're convinced that everyone is sitting at home judging us the next day and talking about us, saying, oh, wow, did you see how we acted, like it was so out of line? When in reality, probably 95% of the room was drunk, and everyone is the next day sitting at home thinking, oh no, I think
Yeah.
I messed up, I crossed the line. But it's like when you see somebody else act crazy or stupid or drunk, you never take it serious. You just say, yeah, they were drunk. It doesn't matter. But when it's us, we are really our own worst critics, and we are so, like, yeah, strict when it comes to ourselves. It's always about us, 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 and really we all do that. So we subscribe way too much power to the people and the others when they probably don't really care at all, because
Yeah.
neither do we.
Yeah. That's the greatest opportunity for you to know you within yourself. You know what is the greatest version you can be without limitations, specifically, limitations coming from other people that again don't even have the results you want to have for your own life, and embracing that, owning your truth, going through the struggle really as the tool and seeing them as the tool we are, as the teachers they are, just allowing you to become better and better and better, seeing what is it that you have identified yourself with and how is it serving you. Many times we identify as this person with these qualities, with this background, that does this, that has this profession, that has this money, that looks like this. And we get so trapped thinking that that's something that embrace who we are, and it is just jail for ourselves. It is something that it's like keeping us so trapped and like really limiting the freedom we have to overcome that and expand.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, wow, I think that we have covered a lot of ground today. Thank you so much for yet another
You
super
too.
interesting conversation. I don't really have much more to add. Maybe if you feel like there's something else that you want to talk about, feel free to bring it up now.
No, just being thankful again with you for this space. And more than open for people to also like share with us what their experiences have been with this talk and the others. Just embracing everyone right now to really sit down and having this struggle that they are going through, because I know that many of us are going through different things that we many times don't even want to see straight in the eyes, but we keep having it in the back of the mind. So my invitation as a closure for this chapter is just sit today with your struggle, have lunch with your struggle. Ask, what is it that you are here to teach me? How is it that I can become your best friend? How is it that you are helping me become better? Really put like create that relationship with your struggle as an ally instead of as an enemy, because that's going to totally change your life. So that's just like that ending message, and really happy and excited to have all this conversation with you.
Wow, beautiful words. I'm going to leave it at that because I can never top that. So, thank you all for watching today. Don't forget, please, to hit the like button if you haven't yet. Feel free to comment below any questions, any topics that you would like me and Elizabeth to discuss in our future Power Talks, which we will be doing. And once again, thank you all so much for tuning in and watching the channel. So that's it from me. A big hug from Belgium and Colombia.
Yes, have a beautiful rest of your week.